Hi everybody, welcome. I'm Cindy Daychuk with Queen Bee Creations. Today's activity, we are going to be playing with making some super cute little watercolor and ink bookmarks. So I'm going to show you two ways of doing this. I'm going to show you a super quick, super easy, no-brainer, nobody can mess it up way. And then I'm going to show you how I actually did these. So, meaning I'm going to draw it myself. But again, I'm not a fantastic drawer. So it is not like you can't do this. I'll show you how I did mine. So I'm going to show you a super easy way to get a really similar look. And I'm going to show you the way that I did it so that you can duplicate that and do that too. To start, we just need to take a piece of, I'm using watercolor paper. We're not doing major watercolor. It's just really loose. We're just getting some color on this. But I like the thickness of the watercolor paper, the durability of it as a bookmark. It's going to wear really well. For this, you do not need to have awesome watercolors. You could get one of those really inexpensive sets from the dollar store and use it. So we're not looking at having to blend them. We're not looking at how they feed into and what kind of bond paper. Don't go crazy with any of this because we're just doing dead simple stuff. Now, I happen to have my watercolor trays and they, of course, just dry on there. So I just spritz them with water to kind of reactivate the colors and go from there. You might just have those little pots. That's fine. And then you just need water. So we're just dipping in a brush. Doesn't have to be a watercolor brush. We just want a brush that's going to hold some water. And we're just going to put it on kind of in dabs and blobs, no rhyme or reason, all over our paper. Now we're going to cut our paper into strips, into the bookmark strips from kind of crosswise. So put your long, like if you've got like an 8.5 by 11 kind of size paper, put your 11 across this size, crossways, horizontally, lengthwise. Not talking well today. And this is like a really cheapo brush. I am getting little brush hairs all over, but that's okay. I can just wipe them free when I'm done. It's not a big deal. Now you can take any colors that you want, and you can actually have kind of different colors in different sections if you want to have some different colored bookmarks. So I'm taking a bit of yellow and I'm just kind of dabbing it on here. I'm taking a little bit of orange and I'm adding it in. Okay, so just here and there-ish. Maybe a little bit of that yellow up in here. And now I'm maybe gonna flip over and add maybe some blues up over here. That's kind of a fairly deep blue. Let me add some down in the bottom. So far, y'all can do this, right? There's no major magic here. So let me add a little bit of a lighter blue. And then let me grab some green. I just want hints of green in here because mostly I'm going to be doing florals and branches and stuff. So I'm going to have some of that green coming up through. And maybe let's just brighten some of that blue up over here on this side. That's it. That's all she wrote, folks. So we don't need anything more than that. We're gonna let this dry. So this is just blobs of color all over. Perfect, that's all we need. If you don't have the watercolors, you could do like really diluted poster paints or really diluted acrylics. It's okay. it would still work. We're just looking for some colors on here that are going to give us kind of that flowy, kind of light colored look, because we're going to be printing over top of this. So this is just background. We're not looking for this being bold. We're not looking for it being defining lines of any kind. We're just going to work with it how it is, and lay our patterns over top. So this doesn't have to be in an established pattern, right? Does that make sense? We're not making flowers yet. We're not doing leaves or anything yet. We are just going to place those anywhere over top of these patterns that we want. This just becomes and defines some background color for us, nothing else. So that's it. No agonizing over it. We just let this dry entirely, and then we can move on to the next step. So I'll be back at you when it's dry. I gave our watercolor paper the night to dry, and you could press it down to like weight it down so it doesn't curl up, but I'm not really agonizing over that. So I do these about 2 1/4 inches wide. There's no magic. You can do it however wide you want to. So I'm just gonna give them a cut though. So I have the bookmarks. And these little cutters just make such nice quick work of it. I promised an easy way of doing our bookmarks, and that is to use a stamp for the floral pattern. So I have the Sprigs stamp from IOD, and I've got a couple of them out here that will fit. So I'm going to take my stamp pad with black IOD ink, and I'm going to work on stamping from the top to the bottom. Now, even when I lay this out, I'm going to want to line up the top first, just to make sure that I have enough space for it, and that I run the stem off the bottom rather than cutting off the top. All right, and all I want to do is just make sure that I press all the sections down to get the ink in contact with the paper before I lift off. And there we go. So we get our sprigs just coming right up the top. And I'm gonna zoom in a little bit closer for you to show you the finishing touches of these and of our alternate. But I'm gonna do one more. So this one, just on my board, waiting for me. Okay, so the same thing, just stamp our ink onto it, roughly as far as I think that I'm gonna need to take it. And lay it down. And push it down. Perfect. Okay, so now it's time to move in closer so that I can show you how I would finish these off and show you how I do mine. So, hang on just a sec. Let me adjust the camera. Okay, so you can see this is our stamped image, and we've got some sections that are missing and that it's a little bit light. And so what I do is I take a black gel pen and I'm just going to finish the design. So here, you know, I might want to extend out the leaves here a little bit, fill in the stems a little, give a little bit of shading down the stem. a little bit of cross hatching here and there. And then same thing coming up here for the stems. You know, I got a little bit of a faded area. I'm going to tie all that back in a little bit more. And just deepen some of the look, extend some of the details, add a little bit of shading on some of the flowers. So it's going to crisp it up a little bit more, and quite honestly, it's going to make it look hand-drawn instead of just a stamp. So it's going to make it look a little bit more personalized, which is great, especially if you're giving them as gifts. So you can kind of see the difference here where I've started to outline some and some the fading. You can see where it starts to look a little bit more hand-drawn and done on its own. And that's what we're kind of after. So, you know, getting the look more of some of these, right, where they've been hand-drawn. So, for the hand-drawn kind, you know, it's not as difficult as it seems because they're made-up flowers. So I'm not drawing something that makes it look like a real life thing, in which case then my drawing skills would quickly be seen to be lacking. So usually, you know, if I want to do kind of a flower, just start with a little bit of an irregular center, right? And I might have another kind of irregular center. And we'll work on those after in terms of petals. But, you know, when we take it out for some petals, you just want to take them out and don't make the ends, the tops of each of your petals, perfect. We want them to be slightly different shapes. So about the same size, but they're a little bit different. So then we can kind of come in behind and fill in with maybe petals in behind. And that's it. That's our flower, right? So then we're going to take our stem and just kind of take it right down to the bottom. And then we're just going to draw in a couple of leaves. So there's maybe our stem. And no rhyme or reason. We get to shape them however we want, right? Let's do another one kind of coming up here. Now the magic in them, because it looks pretty basic, pretty simple, comes in doing a little bit of the shading. So we want to maybe take our pen and start just doing some little shade lines coming from the center, right? So we're just adding a little bit of detail, a little bit darker toward the center, and then we can do the same, kind of coming down every so often on the tips of our flower. So you can see already the difference in that petal versus the others. It just stands out a little bit more, right? And so the petal in behind, I might draw, you know, a couple of lines coming down here and there that give a little bit of creasing or definition to some of the petals, and a couple of lines coming up. and I just turn. To do these as I go. I just find it easier to always be in the same direction. I work better one way than the others, so I use that to my advantage, and I let myself flex around that. And then when it comes to the stem, I like to just kind of add a little bit of shading on that too. So I'm just doing small lines all the way down one side. Then the leaves, you get to add a little bit of extra too. So again, some shading happening on them. I might go back in the opposite direction, do a little bit of cross hatching on those. Okay, and then a little bit down the other side too. Just add a little bit of definition. So it gives you an idea of how you take something that's very simple and just kind of fill in a little bit. It's just doodling, it's just a little bit of drawing. How you could take a stamp and be able to add a little bit on there too. Okay, to finish them off, and I get mine aren't finished yet, but I will finish them. But to finish them off, what I do is I just take a corner punch. There we go, I needed my other hand. And I just want to round out the corners a little bit. This is fairly thick paper, so it takes a little bit to happen. But I'm just going to round out the corners. I am going to punch a hole in the top and put a ribbon through. So these ones are much longer than my others. Right? And you can make them shorter, you can make them whatever length works. But it's just a super cute, fun little way of being able to take a little bit of watercolor, a little bit of ink, make something that's super cute and really quite lovely to give as a gift. You're able to write a sentiment on the back if you want, or perhaps your favorite book quote, which would also be super cool. And it's just a nice little extra to a gift to tuck into a book if you're giving it, or just to share a little bit of your artistry. Hope you give it a try, guys. Let me know if you do. Super easy. It's really not as tough as it looks, and certainly you can go an easier route and just kind of fill in with a bit of a stamp. Anyway, I'm gonna finish these off because I'm gonna have some fun doing that and a little bit of doodling, and I'll see you next time. Take care.